Chapter 186, Lu Xiaoyu's first day of school, Part 2?
Yeah.
Why was she sitting here? Lu Xiaoyu started wondering if life was unfair or she was lacking morals. No, it was because of Lu Shu. Lu Shu was on the way home and was feeling quite relaxed. In the past, he had to attend school while Lu Xiaoyu relaxed at home. It was the other way around now, he could be at home while Lu Xiaoyu went to school. Lu Shu felt cheerful upon thinking of this. Just then, Lu Shu was interrupted. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 99 plus 99 plus 99. Lu Shu sighed, so much distress. But why was he rather glad? Coughs, he shouldn't be like this, at least not show it in front of Lu Xiaoyu. And elsewhere, Lu Xiaoyu was in class sitting there expressionlessly. Her fat politics teacher was puzzled as he looked at Lu Xiaoyu. She was too eye-catching. Is this the new student? Lu Xiaoyu looked at him expressionlessly and continued to think about her life. The politics teacher, Zhao Xinle, stared on as Lu Xiaoyu gazed at him without any response. He was shocked and utterly speechless. From Zhao Xinle's distress, plus 118. Lu Shu was delighted as he received this new income of distress points. Who's this Zhao Xinle? Lu Xiaoyu's new classmate? In class, Zhao Xinle had no intention of speaking to Lu Xiaoyu anymore. In reality, although Lu Xiaoyu was a very normal girl to the rest of the world, she was already a Class E practitioner. Having spent time with powerful people such as Li Xianyi, it was impossible to deny the fact that she was special. She was someone who dared to be rude to people like Li Yixiao and Shi Xuejin. Ordinary people were peanuts to her. The boys in the class were secretly looking at Lu Xiaoyu. This girl was pretty enough for them to spend an entire class enjoying the presence of a new pretty girl in class. And at this point in time, little Fury was sleeping on Lu Xiaoyu's head. A girl with a squirrel on her head was really never seen before by everyone else. It was really special and there was some sort of weird attractiveness about the pairing of the beautiful girl and the squirrel. The girl sitting next to Lu Xiaoyu nudged Lu Xiaoyu with her pen as she saw the teacher scribbling on the blackboard. Where did you attend school before this? Lu Xiaoyu ignored her and continued her self-reflection. The girl beside her was obviously annoyed. What's with the pretense? I'm talking to you. So what if you're pretty? But she didn't say that out loud and the two of them maintained their silence until class was over. The boys were too shy to come over and they thought that the first one who went over to Lu Xiaoyu would look rather desperate. There were a few boys joking with each other, you go. I'm not going. Lu Xiaoyu was in despair as she heard those words. Why was she surrounded by such a group of childish people in the classroom?
Yeah.
Why? Because of Lu Shu. The girls in the class then came over. Wow, your squirrel is really cute. Is it alive? Where did you attend school before this? In Luocheng. Lu Xiaoyu continued to stare blankly at the blackboard. She didn't want to answer a single question. The girl seated beside her then remarked coldly, someone's arrogant and doesn't want to speak to us. Don't waste any more effort. A few of her friends heard her and were displeased with Lu Xiaoyu's arrogant behavior. About 4 or 5 gathered together and started talking amongst themselves. Lu Xiaoyu acted like a princess and her attitude didn't go down well with them. Practitioners had acute senses, stronger than that of ordinary people's, but not limitless as well. So when Lu Xiaoyu couldn't make out clearly what the rest were talking about, she felt rather frustrated. We came to school to learn, all right? She didn't come to school to befriend people and there wasn't anything wrong with that. Did they have to become enemies just because they weren't friends? Lu Xiaoyu thought that this was wrong. Just then, a girl suddenly reached out for little Fury. Lu Xiaoyu turned and looked at her blankly and the girl retreated 2 steps, saying, so what if you have a pet? Pets are not allowed in school. Lu Xiaoyu stared at all of them once more, as if she wanted to beat someone up. She then remembered Lu Shu's words, she must not get into a fight. She silently grabbed Little Fury from the top of her head. Little Fury woke from its sleep and saw the look Lu Xiaoyu was giving it. Little Fury's black eyes turned to the girl at the side and then traded looks with Lu Xiaoyu. Little Fury sent another look, there are 6 of them, how many potato chips? Lu Xiaoyu replied with her eyes, 1 bag. The girls at the side were confused as they looked at the squirrel and its owner exchange about 5 to 6 looks. What was the situation here? In the end, they heard Lu Xiaoyu whispering, beat them up. Was Little Fury strong? This would depend on who it was up against. Against Lu Xiaoyu and Lu Shu, it definitely didn't stand a chance. But then again, the rocks he threw at Lu Shu back then were strong enough for Lu Shu to notice and evade. Little Fury then jumped up from the table and pounced towards one of the girls. Just when everyone thought that Lu Xiaoyu was acting like a refined princess, the landscape changed. Lu Xiaoyu continued to sit expressionlessly as Little Fury's tiny fist landed on the face of the girl beside her. This punch knocked a tooth out of her face and her face started quivering relentlessly. Zhang Haitao, who was next door, was preparing to go back to the staff room after going through 2 lessons today. In fact, he could go home to prepare dinner now. But before long, he heard loud crying sounds, and these sobs belonged to different girls. They sounded as if they were in extreme pain. He turned around. Wasn't that his own class? Meanwhile, Lu Shu was on his sofa preparing to enter the lottery. He was then greeted by a from Gao Yang's distress. From Lu Jin's distress. From. This was a huge wave of income and Lu Shu was rather surprised. He was resting comfortably at home and these distress points couldn't have originated from him. This was the problem, what did Lu Xiaoyu do? At the same time, Lu Shu suddenly received a new income, from Ida Yua's distress. Lu Shu frowned. There was a spy in Lu Xiaoyu's class. Isn't this too young? Chapter 187, Parents, Part 1, Zhang Haitao stood at the doorway of sophomore class 3. Where's Lu Shu from your class? Everyone looked curiously at the teacher, the Daoyuan students are still on a break. Zhang Haitao was agitated, didn't he say that I could find him just by coming up? At this moment, he suddenly remembered that he had Lu Shu's number and scrolled through his address book and called, hey? Lu Shu. Quickly come to school to bring your sister back. She's hit someone on her first day of school. Lu Shu started laughing bitterly. Wow. All my worries came true. But he was also curious. Lu Xiaoyu had always listened to him and if he said to not be violent, she definitely wouldn't lay her hands on others.
Oh no.
Little Fury. No wonder Lu Xiaoyu brought Little Fury. These days in school, Lu Shu would study physics and chemistry or look at updates on the Golden Foundation website in the morning, thus having little interactions with his classmates. In fact, he felt that this whole training incident had suddenly opened up a huge gap between the Daoyuan students and the normal students. It wasn't a matter of conflict but a matter of totally different interests. Cliques and circles were often composed of people with similar objectives or interests. Only with such similarities could 2 parties have a more lively time together. During Daoyuan class at night, although Lu Shu had a contradicting intent, he would still occasionally interact normally with his classmates and have serious conversations. With a group of practitioners around, he wasn't concerned about Little Fury's power. But Lu Xiaoyu's classmates were normal people. He quickly packed and ignoring his lottery, he headed to school. When he had reached, there were 5 to 6 students standing inside the student affairs office, accompanied by their parents. Lu Shu saw the 5 to 6 parents surrounding Lu Xiaoyu, lecturing her while she was sitting speechless in her chair, staring blankly at them. He quickly walked over, stood in front of Lu Xiaoyu and smiled, you guys must be the parents of the victims? Let me understand the situation first and you can lecture me instead. You guys lecturing a child wouldn't look good on you, right? Lu Xiaoyu was originally motionless, but after seeing Lu Shu, her eyes regained its spirit. What happened? Lu Shu turned to Lu Xiaoyu. He felt that listening to what Lu Xiaoyu had to say was the most important instead of listening to the insults others had for her. And although Lu Xiaoyu's temper wasn't excellent, she would never lie to him. I didn't want to go to school, so I was in a bad mood. My deskie greeted me, but I ignored her, so 5 other classmates and her were gossiping that I'm too prideful to talk to them. Then one of the girls wanted to grab Little Fury, so I let Little Fury give them a beating. But I didn't let it hit anyone else. Lu Xiaoyu explained the entire incident. At the side, Zhang Haitao suddenly thought to himself. What accent is that? Sounds like it's from my hometown. Lu Shu heard the details. Lu Xiaoyu had always been honest with her violence, and this, he understood. He then turned and apologized to the parents and offered to pay the medical bills, even saying that they could find someone to beat him up and he wouldn't retaliate. Lu Shu said earnestly, let's resolve the matter within parents and not make life too difficult for the children. You parents gauge how much the medical bills would be and I'll transfer the amount to you. One of the parents raged, beating my child to this state, it would be at least 10,000. What about the rest? Lu Shu turned to the others. The others thought for a moment. 10,000 was actually leaning on the high end, and normally, only an injury as serious as a fracture would require this amount. Everyone knew what was going, but the deskie's parent wasn't happy. My child lost her tooth, that'd be at least 20,000. Okay, 20,000, Lu Shu nodded, let me transfer you guys now. He took a piece of paper and pen from the Student Affairs office and wrote agreement of compensation of medical bills. After writing, he turned to the parents, let me transfer the money now. After each transaction, I'd like each parent to confirm that you have received the money. We can talk about the rest after settling the monetary issue. The parents looked at one another. Didn't Zhang Haitao say that these siblings were orphans? Why the casual payment? In fact, during fights between students, as long as there wasn't blood or injured nerves and bones, a payment wouldn't be necessary but a reconciliation at most. The school would also be willing to be a peacemaker, but Lu Shu was so straightforward in paying the money. After the transaction, the parents didn't really want to sign but did so in the end. About the apology, Lu Shu said that he would do his best to pacify everyone, and he turned over to Lu Xiaoyu. Come here and give everyone a sincere apology. Lu Xiaoyu wasn't unwilling and stood up from her chair, taking a serious bow to the students. I'm sorry. Any more requests from you guys? Lu Shu asked earnestly. Is a bow all it takes? A parent wasn't satisfied. If an apology was effective, what's the point of the police? The police wouldn't bother themselves with small fights between the youngsters, I'm sure you're aware of that. And the school wouldn't wish for the police to be involved here. Is there any other way? Lu Shu was still very earnest. This student has to be expelled. How can I rest assured with such a student in class? Also, how is one apology enough? It has to be 100. A parent exclaimed. After hearing the other party mention Lu Xiaoyu's expulsion, Lu Shu thought for a moment and said, expelling her would affect her entire life. So what? Without good upbringing, what good can she be when she's older? Hearing that, Lu Shu's switch was flipped and he reasoned, to be honest, the cause was due to someone greeting Lu Xiaoyu and Lu Xiaoyu didn't reply. You can say that she's rude, but I think otherwise. If someone else greets me, I can choose not to respond and you don't have to continue talking to me. I never wanted for you to be my friend or to like me. If someone doesn't respond to your curiosity, you'd gossip about her behind her back. Who taught you that? If you saw the Prime Minister and waved to him but was ignored, would you dare to badmouth him? Basically, your daughter was emboldened because of her circle and only dared to choose the easier path. Lu Xiaoyu was wrong to let Little Fury hit them. But honestly, I don't think retaliating with words would be wrong. Chapter 188, Two People's World, Part 2? All the parents were enraged upon hearing Lu Shu's words. What is this child saying? Just because there's no one to teach you at home doesn't mean you can be so insolent. Lu Shu shook his head. To me, the ones without good upbringing are you guys. Although Lu Xiaoyu made a mistake, she definitely shouldn't be expelled. And 100 apologies would be too demeaning, so I wouldn't let her do that. The main priority now should be to sending the children to the hospital instead of getting delayed here. To be honest, if not for my house squirrel's magical abilities, the subsequent events would be a group of girls grabbing him around, Lu Shu said calmly. That's the situation I'd imagine. Little Fury was happy hearing Lu Shu said that it's magical, but Lu Shu shot a glance at Little Fury and it immediately yielded. And Lu Xiaoyu's eyes were lit after hearing Lu Shu. Having someone to protect you felt very good. The parents snapped and turned to the student affairs director. Look, what kind of student is this? I heard from Mr. Zhang that he's also a student in the school. What kind of students does your school produce? I suggest the two of them be expelled. Lu Shu shook his head. We will take our leave first. Whatever the school decides, we will accept it. But my guess is that the ending should be, we wouldn't be expelled. Try it if you don't believe. Frankly speaking, he wasn't worried that he and Lu Xiaoyu would be expelled. It wasn't because Li Yixiao was the principal, but the identity as a Daoyuan student was a form of protection. At that time, when Li Qi hit the teacher, he was only suspended temporarily and Lu Xiaoyu merely hit a few students. The parents looked at one another, confused as to where his confidence came from. The student affairs director sighed. Lu Xiaoyu was admitted by the school principal personally and her brother is a Daoyuan student. And I heard that he performed exceptionally in the recent incident in the remains. After the admission incident in the afternoon, the director had researched to find out more about Lu Shu. And the rumors about this student were really strange. Everyone understood the standing of the Daoyuan class. In the past, everyone would probably use their connections to pressure the principal, but now that the Luocheng International's principal was one of the few heavenly kings, pressuring wouldn't even affect him. The parents suddenly felt helpless. Could this be it? Were our children beaten up for nothing? Wait, no, he didn't ask for the money back. When everyone truly knew the significance of the other party's identity, they thought about the compensation and felt comforted. In reality, humans tend to bully the weak and fear the strong. On the way home, Lu Shu walked silently in front and Lu Xiaoyu followed behind quietly, carrying her little school bag. The atmosphere between the two of them and the squirrel was extremely tense. Lu Shu would rarely get mad at Lu Xiaoyu, very very rarely. So rare that even in Lu Xiaoyu's impression of Lu Shu, he was always cheerful and good-tempered. During their time together, Lu Shu would fulfill most of Lu Xiaoyu's wishes and even when they quarreled, Lu Xiaoyu always had the upper hand. But Lu Xiaoyu knew that was because Lu Shu let her. She also knew that Lu Shu wasn't good-tempered unconditionally. He was never a nice guy or using others' words. Lu Shu's personality was slightly dark, loner, tough, and sometimes selfish. Lu Xiaoyu would usually act recklessly, but when Lu Shu was really angry, she knew that she was really wrong. This feeling came naturally as Lu Xiaoyu felt that Lu Shu was always right. If Lu Shu was angry, she must have done something wrong. Lu Xiaoyu wanted to hold Lu Shu's hand, but before she could extend her hand, Lu Shu had already kept his inside his pocket. To Lu Shu, protecting Lu Xiaoyu from outsiders was his responsibility. Even if Lu Xiaoyu was in the wrong, he had to protect her. This was Lu Shu's unchangeable principle. It may be unreasonable and being biased may be wrong, but Lu Shu was willing to be wrong forever. He was willing to apologize in her stead, and he wouldn't hesitate to use up half of his savings. But that didn't matter since the amount saved up was more than enough. From Lu Shu's point of view, an apology was necessary and lecturing Lu Xiaoyu was too, but he couldn't let Lu Xiaoyu suffer. But this didn't mean that Lu Xiaoyu wasn't wrong. She should understand what her mistake was and change for the better, not to keep committing the same mistake. That kind of life just wasn't right. Lu Xiaoyu saw that Lu Shu kept his hand and tears suddenly flowed down her little cheeks. Being surrounded by so many people and being lectured didn't affect her, but Lu Shu was different. The whole world could ignore her but Lu Shu couldn't. Because she only had Lu Shu. Lu Shu didn't soften his heart and didn't wipe her tears. He continued walking and Lu Xiaoyu followed behind silently. The city district's west courtyard had very old walls. In the era of high-rise buildings, the short houses and bungalows in the west courtyard had a sense of contemporaneity. Lu Shu walked through the red-bricked alley and passed by Li Xianyi's yard to see him practicing his swordplay silently. He saw the little lady crying but didn't say anything as he understood that this sibling had their own living principles, and that their worldviews weren't the same as his. When the two of them stood in front of the door, Lu Xiaoyu couldn't tolerate it anymore. Lu Shu, are you going to send me back to the orphanage? Please don't send me away, I know I'm wrong. Lu Shu sighed. He brought the ladder in the front yard over and leaned it against the roof. Come on up. Once Lu Xiaoyu had climbed up, Lu Shu was already sitting on the edge of the roof, both his legs hanging in midair, and staring at the distant sunset. The sun rays shone gently through the clouds as Lu Xiaoyu stood behind Lu Shu not knowing what to do. Lu Shu tapped the spot next to him. Sit down first. Okay, Lu Xiaoyu sat beside Lu Shu obediently and Little Fury sneakily hid inside Lu Xiaoyu's school bag, only leaving its head poking out. Lu Shu helped Lu Xiaoyu take her bag off and placed it at the side, talking slowly. In this era, our power would definitely surpass that of normal people. And there might even come a day when not even all the normal people in this world could match us. But this doesn't mean that we can abuse our power to bully them. Being strong doesn't give you authority. If we cannot retain our foundation, we would only swing towards the dark side. Do you understand? Chapter 189 Wreak Havoc, Part 3. Lu Shu was very stubborn, so stubborn that he would never do the things he deemed wrong. And for the things he deemed right, even if many people said it's wrong, he would still do them. Some people said that in the adult world, there wasn't right or wrong but only benefits. But since Lu Shu was still young, he felt that there was a clear line between kind and evil, right and wrong. There were many ways for Lu Shu to get stronger. For example, he could defame a celebrity, or purposely find faults with others, or even to agitate those that were kind to him. Not to mention that the life lessons he sent on the Golden Foundation forum was always buried, even if they didn't. He wouldn't randomly find faults with others. What was the point in living in this world? How far could a powerful, despicable and unreasonable villain go? Human nature could change, and in actuality, there's nothing in the world that couldn't change. Even beliefs, the sun and moon, the rivers and mountains could be changed. But Lu Shu's mindset had never changed because of his stubbornness. After leaving the orphanage, he had never stolen because of hunger, never sabotaged others' businesses because of his poor egg business, never done anything evil after training. As a result, he didn't become an unscrupulous thief today, and never got beaten up for stealing others' business, and didn't die in the hands of the Heavenly Network. Lu Shu felt that his moral standard in the eyes of others wasn't that high, but he had to persevere. Up till today, Lu Shu could confidently slap his chest and say that he had never done anything guilty. Even the people he annoyed were people who found fault with him first. His retaliation might have caused more harm to others than the harm he received, but on what basis could they mess with him? He was just treating them the same way he was treated unreasonably. Logically, Lu Shu felt that if someone killed another person with evil intentions, he should be killed twice. The first time would be compensation, one life for another. And the second time would be for punishment for his evil. He suddenly lamented to Lu Xiaoyu, Uncle Li is a normal person. Auntie Wang too. If I cold-bloodedly killed them with one punch right now, it would be wrong. Do you know why? Lu Xiaoyu replied softly, I shouldn't have let Little Fury hit them. Lu Shu shook his head, there would always be a right time for retaliation. This world has evil intentions for the weak, so you have to become strong enough that no one else could bully you. But the retaliation should be measured and you should consider the consequences and the impacts of it on others. If you told someone else you want to crack a joke and ended up killing him, could you blame him for not being a good sport? So your meaning is, Lu Xiaoyu thought for a moment and said, I should have retaliated but the beating was too harsh? Yes, that's what I meant. Others only insulted you a little and you beat them to a pulp, that's too much, Lu Shu sighed. He was troubled at the sight of those girls' swollen and bruised faces. Lu Shu suddenly turned to the school bag and said, no more rewards for it after today's incident, accomplice. Following blindlessly just for something to eat. Little Fury? I'm just working for my rewards. From Little Fury's distress, +1 +1 +1. Okay, Lu Xiaoyu lowered her head and had an apologetic look, I'll consider seriously next time. That's right. Learning from your mistake is being a good child, Lu Shu smiled. He didn't want to scold Lu Xiaoyu. If proper reasoning could bring across the message, it was much better than a few scoldings. Lu Xiaoyu understood that Lu Shu wasn't going to send her back and was feeling much more cheerful. But for some reason, she suddenly lowered her head again, sorry about your hard-earned money. I can help you sell stinky tofu every day and I'll do the dishes, wash clothes and even socks from now on. Lu Shu was delighted, all right. The money spent can be earned back and I'm gonna become a top practitioner. This little money wouldn't matter. Never mind the socks, you can help me with the rest. But I still don't want to go to school, Lu Xiaoyu said unwillingly as her little legs were hanging off the edge of the roof and swaying. What's the reason for going to school? Lu Shu asked Lu Xiaoyu seriously. What else? Of course for knowledge, Lu Xiaoyu replied softly, but I can also learn from Grandpa, so why do I have to go to school? Lu Shu shook his head. Knowledge is one thing, but the other reason is to come out of your comfort zone to get to know this world and its people. Only by coming out could you understand the world's rules, and only by following these rules can you become stronger. Lu Shu was suddenly energized at this point, as the saying goes, having pored over 10,000 volumes, once can write with godly power. If you continuously annoyed the other party, there wouldn't be a need for violence. Lu Xiaoyu thought for a while, I think I still prefer violence. Lu Shu waved his hand, then it's all right as long as you know how to control your strength. Everyone has their own hobby, so violence it is. Oh, Lu Xiaoyu nodded, so annoying others is your hobby. At this moment, the sun was already below the horizon and out of sight, leaving brightly red-colored clouds stretching across the sky. The minuscule sibling sat atop their roof and the whole world was like a colorful oil painting. Lu Xiaoyu said softly, Lu Shu, the way you stood in front of me today was quite cool. Of course, Lu Shu smirked, whoever wants to bully you will have to get past me first. If we made an error we will admit it, but no one can insult us. And only I'm allowed to scold you. A bright glimmer appeared within Lu Xiaoyu's eyes, as if the cloud had suddenly come alive. This moment was eternal. She always felt that Lu Shu was all she needed in this world and she would never feel lonely. She placed all her trust in Lu Shu and Lu Shu had never disappointed her. Lu Shu, will you always stand up for me? Of course I will. If someone scolds me can I still hit him? I'm referring to a simple beating, not like today. You can. What if someone hits me? Then beat him up. What if someone wants to kill me? Then kill him first. What if the whole world wants me dead? Lu Shu was stunned. As he saw the last ray of light being enveloped by the darkness, then wreak havoc in this world. Chapter 190, Broken Trust. The sun had set and the daylight was finally engulfed in darkness. Lu Xiaoyu looked as if she received the most satisfactory answer, swinging her legs at the edge of the roof. It was a long time since the two of them last had a serious conversation and once it started, it was unstoppable. Jiang Shuyi told me that the Heavenly Network is building military schools. At that time, all the Daoyuan students would be admitted there and I reckon that the management would be very strict. I might even have to stay in school and who knows when I can come home. Lu Shu said. Lu Xiaoyu was stunned. Everyone has to go? What about university? There would be examinations for the military schools too. And a job will be provided with the reward of an officer rank. All Class E practitioner would be second lieutenants and will be paid. Since we're taking their money, we'd have to work for them and it might be dangerous, Lu Shu nodded, but no matter the risks, we have to do something for them after taking their money and resources. After all, our house was bought using their magical stones. After that? Lu Xiaoyu was curious. Her impression of Lu Shu was someone who wouldn't be willingly controlled by others and listen to orders. We will talk about that next time. Lu Shu watched as a myriad of lights slowly came on, thinking that there shouldn't be that much evil in this peaceful world. He thought and said, if I'm going to be busy all the time, I might not have much time to bring you out to play. But the world is so beautiful and there are still so many places we haven't been to. Lu Xiaoyu acknowledged and didn't say anything else. She had always wanted to travel and thought that now that they had money, they could actually travel during the summer break. But in the end, Lu Shu had to pay such a large sum of money, causing Lu Xiaoyu to feel guilty. No more fried tomato eggs to save money. And she couldn't blame Lu Shu for paying that much money since the trouble was caused by her. Lu Shu suddenly said, let's not go out on the May Day holiday. I saw on the news that there would be many people everywhere during the Golden Tourism Week. With crowds of people around, going out wouldn't be fun. Lu Xiaoyu once again acknowledged and didn't say anything else. Let's wait until summer break to travel since our money is enough. Where do you want to go? Lu Shu asked. At this moment, Lu Xiaoyu's eyes lit up. She originally thought that they would not be traveling this year. Are you bringing me out during the summer break? You're not mad at me anymore? Seeing Lu Xiaoyu's excited expression, Lu Shu smiled. How can I be angry until the summer break? Where do you want to go? And let's plan our trip strategy, such as what transport to take, where to stay, what to eat and all that. Traveling would be quite expensive, so we should plan carefully. Lu Xiaoyu winked, let me think about it first. And for the strategy, you can leave it to me. I'll show you once it's done. Thinking that they could go out together to play, maybe go to some attractions, buy some delicious food and take a lot of photos together, Lu Xiaoyu was rather excited. Oh! Lu Xiaoyu suddenly exclaimed. Lu Shu was surprised. What happened? The TV series had started. Lu Xiaoyu hopped down. Lu Shu? He went back in with a long face and sat on the sofa, watching Lu Xiaoyu looking around for something. What are you looking for? Lu Xiaoyu walked over. Did you sit on the remote control? Lu Shu took a deep breath. Firstly, my answer to this question is based on our mutual trust. What do you mean? Lu Xiaoyu was stunned. What did asking about the remote control had to do with trust? So are you sitting on the remote control? No. Get up. The trust was broken. Lu Shu was displeased. Once I'm in military school you can watch all the TV series you want. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly felt something not right. After Lu Shu entered military school, wouldn't they only be able to meet once in a while? That's not good. I'll go study. Lu Xiaoyu left Lu Shu alone and went back into her room. Lu Shu? Can your mood swing not be so drastic? He looked into her room and Lu Xiaoyu had indeed taken out her textbook and started studying. Lu Shu took a deep breath. What can she be up to? This is too unusual. Why are you suddenly so hardworking? Oh right, there's something else. Let's let the old man continue teaching you at night? Lu Shu asked. The old man didn't seem too happy in the morning after painstakingly studying middle school math and in the end, Lu Xiaoyu was going to school. It was normal for him to be angry and so Lu Shu wanted to make it up. After all, the old man was quite nice to them. Sure, Lu Xiaoyu agreed spontaneously. This caused Lu Shu distress. Lu Xiaoyu was being too weird. Speaking of which, he wanted to ask about the Japanese name. When Lu Xiaoyu got little fury to beat up others, distress points weren't only generated from the victims. The whole class and even the teachers contributed distress points too. This name-revealing system was such a trouble when it came to many people, being unable to identify the target group. So he wanted to find out who this Japanese person was, but after half a day of thinking, he still had no idea how to bring it up. Even Lu Xiaoyu didn't know about his distress points. Suddenly, Lu Shu's eyes lit up. He took out his phone to find the contact number of Lu Xiaoyu's form teacher Zhang Haitao. Using the communication software to search for personal information, there it was. One look and that must be the form teacher's number. Old Billows, male, 41 years old. What a typical and old-fashioned nickname. At least my nickname is more unique. He sent a friend invite to Zhang Haitao. On the other hand, Zhang Haitao had just finished dinner and was watching television on the sofa with his wife when he suddenly received a friend invite. Can't believe an expert has requested to add you as a friend. Zhang Haitao was surprised. Since when did the chat software change become so expressive? He clicked on it and after looking carefully, he realized that the other party's nickname was Can't Believe an Expert. Crazy. Can't believe an expert. Hi Mr. Zhang, I'm Lu Xiaoyu's guardian Lu Shu. From Zhang Haitao's distress, plus 388. Lu Shu's nickname was only changed after entering the Daoyuan class, but he had already added all his classmates and never got the chance to display his trick. But now with a new friend, he finally got the chance.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens to tell us things that we better.